Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Premanandi Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shintai Sachi Sutta ki, Shri Jagannath Baladev Sabhadra ki, Shri Radha Paraseshwara ki, Grantha Ashrama Bhagavatam ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Guru and Guru, glories to Srila Prabhupada, Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Chinamani Namaste, Saraswate Devi Gauravani Vicharini Nivasesha Shanivari Pastikari Shatari. Hare Krishna. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 10, Text number 8. I don't know, you intend to finish this chapter by the end of Kartik? Or what was the plan? Does anyone know? Anyone know? We're dealing with the pastime of Lord Krishna being bound by Mother Yasoda. Yeah, so this is the chapter now, Deliverance of the Yamalajun trees. So I was told we're doing this chapter, at least 2 chapters, particularly because this is the month of Ramadan. So the kind of usual plan is to finish the pastime, but not here, I'm just visiting, so I don't know what your plan is. So if someone knows, if they can come and let me know, because we'll move on to a few verses if that's the case. Depends how many. Depends what the temple management plans. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So, excuse me.
Put your arm on the outside.
Okay, I'll just read it through.
Thank you very much.
And I'll ask a question before we start, and maybe you'll answer, maybe you don't. But there's about, let's see, we're on text number 8 here. The chapter has 43 verses. So are you endeavoring to finish this chapter before the end of Kartik? You're not. There's no plan like that.
No plan.
Okay, fine. Shri Naruvacha Nayanyo Jushato Jashan Buddhi Brangsho Rajo Gunaha Shri Modad Abhijatyadi Yatrasti Dutam Ashavaha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada and purport also. Narada Muni said, among all the attractions of material enjoyment, the attraction of riches bewilders one's intelligence more than having beautiful bodily features or taking birth in an aristocratic family and being learned. When one is uneducated, but falsely puffed up by wealth, the result is that one engages his wealth in, what is he engaged in? Nefarious activity, and specifically 3 activities mentioned here. One engages one's wealth when one's falsely puffed up. That is, in 3 things specifically, maybe many things. In this day and age there are many things, but particularly 3 things. When you have vast amounts of wealth, a lot of wealth, more than one's needed. Intoxication. Wine is mentioned as a representative of intoxication. Women, with enjoying sex life, of course, and gambling. Particularly these 3 activities are indulged in. Of course, eating, but eating is already there. Rich or poor people are eating. But intoxication, excessive indulgence in illicit sexual activities and gambling are activities which are mentioned here that one tends to indulge in if we are uncontrolled and uneducated and puffed up by wealth. I don't know if anyone here has had an experience of being in a very wealthy situation. When we talk of wealth nowadays, we're not talking of a few thousand euros in the bank. We're talking of people who have millions and billions. Or even those who don't nowadays, the tendency is to borrow or to go some kind of arrangement so one indulges in these activities even though one doesn't have the wealth to back it. And oftentimes that leads to great distress. Purport. Among the 3 modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, people are certainly conducted by the lower qualities, namely passion and ignorance, especially by passion. Conducted by the mode of passion, one becomes more and more involved in material existence. You see in the Bhagavad Gita, Kam Esha Kodesha Vadaguna Samadbhava Mahashama Mahapapma Vidyanim here. Wow, Arjuna is asking, what is it that makes a man act sinfully, even if it's against his will, in a sense? Sometimes you know it's wrong, but you're driven by a force which seems to be powerful, more powerful than our discrimination, drives us into activities of a sinful nature. of various kinds. And Krishna says, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born, of course, of the mode of passion, in which we're not satisfied, particularly when it's frustrated, it transforms into wrath. And the same thing is there in the Bhagavad Gita in the second chapter, how by contemplating the object of the senses one becomes attached. From such attachment, lust develops, and lust is frustrated, and anger, and so on and so one falls down into the material world. And this is the nature of passion. The mode of being controlled by the mode of passion. The tendency is that we become out of control, basically. And when our desires are not fulfilled, then the mode of ignorance kicks in, and we become angry and bewildered and so on and so forth, depressed or whatever it may be. Mode of ignorance. Now, this is the general nature of the direction of the material world. And especially if one has, as a result of one's good karma or whatever it may be, but one has vast wealth. Vast wealth. The tendency is that one then indulges in activities of a sinful nature. And that's the all-devouring sinful enemy of the world. One becomes more and more involved. Therefore, human life is meant for subduing the mode of passion and ignorance and advancing in the mode of goodness. In the mode of goodness, as we see, when Prabhupada quotes here, in the second chapter of the first canto, Tata rajastamo bhava kamalobadayas chaye cheta etar anavidam stitam satve prasidati. Thus, if someone has the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in English, then we can read the other verses which are around this verse. First canto, chapter 2. Someone can, or maybe you've got it and we can read it from computer or something, I don't know, but something like that. First canto, chapter 2. But this verse, how one who's situated or comes to that mode of goodness and the effects of the modes of passion and ignorance are basically removed. They're basically dissolved. They're no longer, when one comes to this platform, through the practice of pure devotional service, one's heart becomes cleansed of the effects of the controlling effects of the modes of passion, ignorance. If mode of passion maybe is seen to be there, but it's not. One's not controlled by it. Rather, one uses it in the service of Krishna. Even the mode of ignorance in the form of sleep, and people may perceive the mode of ignorance sometimes when a devotee becomes angry or whatever, seemingly frustrated, but it's not. It's because it's only for Krishna. Prabhupada would sometimes become angry from the material point of view, but for Krishna, not considering necessarily the circumstances around him sometimes, because the highest principle is that which pleases Krishna, and that's above the three modes of mature nature. But from the material perspective, it may appear that a great devotee is becoming angry, or is very greedy, or very passionate, or something. But no, it's just utilizing these different energies in the service of Krishna, not being controlled. Many times when Prabhupada would become angry with a devotee, oftentimes his servants, Prabhupada would get angry with him. But the next second, it was all over. It was like onto another subject, as if nothing had happened. Because every situation, Prabhupada was always thinking of what does Krishna want? What will please Krishna? So unlike us, we're thinking what pleases us. We get angry, we can't, shake it off sometimes for days. You can't sleep, you can't think straight, we're really disturbed. And pure devotee is not that. He just uses anger in the service of Krishna sometimes. Like that. So this is the result of one who comes to pure devotional service. If we got the first canto part, chapter 2 then. Okay. Haribol. Thank you. Well, we have to open up on text number 14, please. 15. This is culture. One must subdue the mode of passion and ignorance. In the mode of passion, when one is falsely proud of wealth, one engages his wealth only for three things, namely wine, women, and gambling. We can actually see, especially in this age, that those who have unnecessary riches simply try to enjoy these three things. In Western civilization, these three things are very prominent because of an unnecessary increase of wealth. And of course, it's artificial, you could say, as much as anything, in the form that there's not really any genuine wealth there. It's just some superficial wealth in terms of some asset in the bank or something. Some people have possessed large properties and gold and things, but not so many directly. Mostly they have just some artificial figures in the bank, and on the basis of that, they spend money, artificial money, on so many things. And thus, in the Kali Yuga process, this is the actual big problem in Kali Yuga. Is false. Kali gets in through the false monetary system. Because of this false monetary system, Kali has a very big grip on the world around us. We're all obligated to the system. You have no money, you take a mortgage, you take a loan, you take a bank, something from the bank, you take something on lease. So many things people are purchasing because of ignorance, passion and ignorance. They're purchasing so many things which they don't really need. They're superfluous, they're unnecessary to the soul in general, but due to passion and ignorance, we don't realize that. And society is guided by passion and ignorance. And here, people by nature go into the modes of ignorance in this world, by nature. But in the society, as Prabhupada mentions here, one has to cultivate or culture the mode of goodness. And for the majority of people, it means acting under a society which is governed by goodness, which is governed by the Vedic directives, which is governed by spiritually elevated personalities, so that everybody, knowingly, unknowingly, progresses towards the mode of goodness and finally towards the spiritual platform. So a society which, instead of giving Shudras wealth, in terms of so-called money, in which they indulge, even the poor persons have money, the government gives, and they spend it on cigarettes and wine and gambling. You see, most of the people on the big level, but in the small level, most of the gambling shops, most of the liquor shops are full up with very uneducated and poor people in general. They don't have the control of the senses. They're Sudras, or they're in the mode of ignorance, and they can't resist it. They've got to drink some liquor, smoke some cigarettes, and gamble. Most of them. All over the world we see this going on. Because they're not guided by goodness. They haven't got the intelligence to understand what they're doing and what the reaction is. And they're not guided by a society which cares less. In fact, the society is quite happy that this is going on because it keeps them in ignorance and fills the pockets of the rich, exploiting the poor with this false monetary system and encouraging them basically to indulge in sense gratification. So we're just going to read now a little bit from the Bhagavatam. We're going to jump forward a few more verses. The second canto, first canto, chapter 2. And this is, let's see. I just read from text 18 actually. It's a famous verse, Nashta Praisha Badushu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavatutam Shloki Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. And so the Goswami is explaining to the sages the path of perfection, you could say. The second chapter contains the path or the true religious principles in this, any time in this world. In this particular section, he's explaining how by serving the great devotees of the Lord, one who are freed of all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gradually gains an attraction for the personality of Godhead, because through service, one associates with great personalities. Through following a Vedic society, one gradually develops some qualities of goodness. So simply by following great devotees' directions, we can gradually become elevated in consciousness. Now, the primary characteristic or quality of a pure devotee is his intense attachment to Krishna, or his attraction, his intense attraction for hearing and chanting about Krishna. So that gradually develops too. Of course, the heart is very dirty, so that attraction does not immediately take effect, but Krishna in the heart, he cleanses the desires for material. As we progressively serve the pure devotee, the Lord cleanses our heart. If we follow our mind, what I like, even in the name of devotional service, it's a long, long process, because we're basically following our conditioned nature. Of course, it's very good, but the idea in Vedic society is that we actually follow the direction. It's not a free-for-all. As we were listening to a lecture this morning, and Srila Prabhupada was describing how in our modern society, they change whimsically. All the time they're just changing things whimsically. Philosophy is changing whimsically, science is changing whimsically, laws are changing whimsically, everything, all forms of objects of the senses, partnerships are changing whimsically, even changing so-called religions whimsically, changing, everything's changing. But it's not actually going anywhere particularly of value of any kind. It's just simply change. People don't know where they're going. They don't know the directional goal of life. Those in the mode of goodness are supposed to know the goal of life. To inquire, jivasitat vijignasa. Early in this chapter, this verse was there. To inquire into the nature of the absolute truth. That should be the goal. So people may be a little dull, a little stupid. They can't think about that, but they'll be engaged by those who are intelligent or those who are more advanced in a way that they can actually progress. It's a great crime, a great sin, to indulge persons in sinful activity, to encourage them to engage in drinking and smoking and having illicit sex and gambling and eating meat and all the various other branches of sinful activity. It's a very sinful thing, knowing that these things are wrong. If the leaders don't know they're wrong, they shouldn't be leaders. They're actually fools, no worse than the people who are so-called leading. But this is the problem in society. The leaders do not know the goal of life. They think the goal of life is sense gratification. Economic development, sense gratification. This is a good, if religion helps to fulfill that, that's a good religion. Our religion is really good. Huh? Just see how rich we are and how much pleasure we're getting. This is completely opposite of the purpose of religion in reality. It may have some side effect like that, but that's not the goal of it. The goal is the ultimate goal, and not towards sense gratification. So in this verse today, the one that's quoted here in the second chapter, by regular attendance, the old translation, by regularly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious or troublesome to the heart is practically destroyed almost to nil, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Almost to nil, because we're still in contact with the material world. There's still a trace there, association and past conditioning traces are there. Ultimately, the mercy of Krishna who removed them all. But by this process of serving the devotees and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, or another, this is the method. When Prabhupada came to the Western world, can you pass me a songbook? Songbook, English one, please. Thank you, Devashi. There is one. I think it's on the ground level somewhere. Yeah, man. Thanks, Bob. I don't know if it'll be in here. It's not. Let's see what this one's got right. The mood of the pure devotees. No, it's not in here. They've left it out. A great shame. I think it's like that anyway. Maybe this is no, it's left out. Not in there. Yeah, it was a great mistake when that was left out of the songbook, some of the songbooks. The most important song in the songbook, in one sense. Yeah, you'll find it in there, but I mean, I can't say how, maybe. And then today's verse, we'll read the direct translation, the verse rather, not today's verse, the verse quoted in the purport. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart, irrevocable, it doesn't go backwards. It's not like up and down like our present devotional service, motivated. Sometimes we only do it under air condition, only at certain times, etc., etc. This is not devotional service in the real sense of the term. It's a path which leads to pure devotional service, possibly if we follow the pure devotees. Otherwise, it can go on a little too long. But the idea is that we voluntarily, render service to the pure devotees of the Lord, and gradually become purified of these anartas, or these attachments which we have in this material world, and these various concepts which we have. Pure devotional service is a hoitikia pratiyata, as mentioned earlier in the chapter. It is unmotivated, uninterrupted. In the preliminary stages, of course, there's motivations, selfish motivations, of course, is interrupted. But recognizing that to change and following the pure devotees of the Lord, praying for the Lord's mercy, made progress in spiritual life, and gradually the Lord helped within the heart to cleanse the motivations away, remove those dirty things, those anartas from the heart. The Lord removes the unwanted, whatever, desires, attitudes, whatever it is in our heart. And then one comes more and more to the mode of pure goodness, unaffected by the passion. Pardon? Oh, you got one. Great, thanks. Thank you very much. So Prabhupada has the same point which he mentions. He quotes these verses in his Markandeya Bhagavat Dharma, and he says, then after quoting these verses, which we're just reading, he says, we will become liberated from the influence of the mode of passion and ignorance, and thus all inauspicious things accumulated in the heart, the core of the heart, will disappear. And then he says, how will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I'm very unfortunate, unqualified. I am the most fallen. I'm seeking your benediction so that I can convince them, for I am powerless to do so on my own. In the mood of Prabhupada, in the previous stanzas in this poem, Prabhupada said, how will they understand? Oh, I'll go back one more. Most of the population, Prabhupada says, here is, talking about America, is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied, and therefore they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how they will be able to understand it. There's no taste whatsoever, and we see that all the time. You try to talk to the majority of people, they've got no taste whatsoever. No time either. No time, no interest, no money, if you want to ask it. They've got plenty of money for gambling, plenty of money for intoxication, sex life, meat eating, and so many other things, smoking, wasting their money on all kinds of gadgets. They have plenty of money for that. But for €1, they have no money to get one little book of Srila Prabhupada, Perfection of Yoga or something. No money. No time, no interest. Not for me. So covered by ignorance and passion. So unfortunate. Oh, that's why prasad distribution is so important. They may not list, there's no government which is governing from the mode of goodness, that's for sure. And so what to speak of transcendental goodness. So they've no hope from that side whatsoever, zero hope. And from religion it's almost disappeared, it's just some superficial labels, hardly any genuine, let's say, connection with the will of God, hardly, a little bit maybe. And so not much hope from that direction. Philosophy is just speculation, so not much hope there. And thus people are just completely entangled in a totally materialistic state of consciousness. And the devotee comes along, they have they naturally, people see it as another material activity. This guy wants money out of me. That's how it works. I'm not interested in what he's got, just some scam or something. Some religion, their concept of religion is rather disappointing. Another flaming religion, get out of here. Oh, some foreign stuff. Or whatever it is, some crazy people. Whatever. Can't relate, they don't even try to relate to it. So it's very difficult for people. The prasad, food, they may relate to. Give them lots of prasadam, fill them up. Especially the French people, they really need. By gambling, all these things, they didn't even know animal. All living entities have come under the control of this illusory energy by your will, because without Krishna's will we can't come under it. We may desire to get out, but only Krishna can release us. All living entities have come under the control. I wish, the Prabhupada says, that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. The methodology of deliverance is to understand the message of Godhead. Devotional service, practical devotional service, Shushushoshadanasya leads to this platform of being, by the mercy of Krishna, being able to understand the message. It's suddenly the lights come on. Wow! Sometimes we read the Bhagavad Gita our whole life and we're still not practically applying it. And suddenly the lights come on. Dong! Ah! And you start to realize that this is what we should be doing. This is for me. This is meant for me. So like that, by the mercy of service to the pure devotees, and is gradually by the mercy of Krishna, we may develop an attraction for hearing and chanting. We want to hear about anything else. We won't tolerate mundane topics. I was hearing this morning, Prabhupada in another lecture was saying that this is simply all they're talking about. Nonsense all the time. Gossip. I would use the word gossip, but Sridhar Kiri would say gossip. He wouldn't even call criticism, he would call it gossip. Everyone's gossiping. This morning he was saying all they're interested in is sitting around talking nonsense. Where did you get the cloth from? How was it made of? Where did you get it? How much did it cost? What colour is it? All this sort of stuff. All rubbish. Total useless rubbish, which does nothing but bind us in the modes of passion and ignorance, birth, death, disease, and old age. That's what was going on. So it's nonsense. Philosophers, politicians, religionists, scientists, all nonsense. Only concept is mundane. And talk, material rubbish. So that's not the nature of a pure devotee. He can't hates to hear that sort of stuff. He may hear it for the sake of trying to bring someone to Krishna consciousness sometimes, may even talk a little bit about it to catch them. No interest in it whatsoever. Newspapers, this thing, that thing. Which for the moment, they don't have newspapers now, but Yahoo News or whatever it is, some kind of news. I look at news on Google News. No, BBC News, not Google, BBC News. I'm English, so I look at BBC News. Ultimately, it's all rubbish. But, what to say? Nonsense, rubbish. But, that attraction, for the sake of justify it, sake of necessity, we may sometimes look at these things. And looking partly because of Brexit, just wondering what's going to happen. Such an important thing in the universe. The whole universe is watching. What will they decide in Parliament? Everyone's kept on the edge. So, wasting our time away when we could be hearing and chanting, but no attraction for hearing the message of God. And so Prabhupada's praying that they somehow or another, they develop an attraction for hearing and chanting about Krishna, because that is what will cleanse our heart. Otherwise we'll never give up these attractions for the mundane world. Even though we are mechanically engaged in devotional service, we're still attached to the material world. When that attraction really comes for hearing and chanting, when will they be then only by your mercy will they be able to understand your message. The words of Srimad Bhagavatam are your incarnation, and if a sober person, one who's not intoxicated by wealth and the consequent women, wine and gambling, etc., A sober person repeatedly receives it with submissive oral reception. He will be able to understand your message. This oral reception. This is also described in the first canto a little later on. The 7th chapter, I think it's 7th chapter. But we don't have time or to refer to that probably. We don't have the first canto here. It's difficult to find on here. Okay, so established in goodness, and then he becomes completely happy. No more effects of lust, desires and hankering, no more passion and ignorance. Whew, how nice it would be. What to say? We still have, I do anyway, some work to do. Now we have a picture of hexagons on there, huh?
If you want to read, you need to close it and reopen.
Oh. This is the wonder of Kindles, isn't it? Unlike the book, it disappears after a few minutes. Oh, it's a lovely purple. I'll read the purple one. A living being in his normal constitutional position is fully satisfied in spiritual bliss. This state of existence is called Brahmabhuta or Atmananda, or the state of self-satisfaction. This self-satisfaction is not like the satisfaction of the inactive fool. The inactive fool is in the state of foolish ignorance, whereas the self-satisfied Atmanandi is transcendental to the material state of existence. The stage of perfection, this stage is attained as soon as one is fixed in irrevocable devotional service. It means one never deviates in any way. It's not like no one's watching, let me deviate, let me do some nonsense. That's mixed devotional service, you could say. It's not irrevocable. It means there's nothing else, no deviation at all, no going backwards, no thoughts of going backwards. This stage of perfection. Devotional service is not inactivity, but is the unalloyed activity of the soul. The soul's activities become adulterated in contact with matter, and as soon as the diseased activities are expressed in the form of lust, desire, hankering, inactivity, foolishness, and sleep, the effect of devotional service becomes manifest by complete elimination of these effects of passion and ignorance. The devotee is fixed at once in the mode of goodness, and he makes further progress to rise to the position of Vasudeva, or the state of unmixed sattva, pure Shuddha sattva, pure goodness. Only in this Shuddha sattva state can one always see Krishna face to face, by dint of pure affection for the Lord. A devotee is always in the mode of unalloyed goodness, therefore he harms no one. But the non-devotee, however educated he may be, is always harmful. A devotee is because he's always indulging people in material ignorance, sense gratification. A devotee is neither foolish nor passionate. The harmful, foolish, and passionate cannot be devotees of the Lord. However, they may advertise themselves as devotees by outward dress. A devotee is always qualified with all the good qualities of God. Quantitatively, such qualifications may be different, but qualitatively, both the Lord and the devotee are one and the same. And in the next verse, text 20 of the 2nd chapter, Sutta Goswami says, thus established in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the man whose mind has been enlivened by contact with devotional service to the Lord gains positive, scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. He's freed from that material association, then positive scientific knowledge. One realizes one's nature, the nature of the Supreme, and one's relationship with Him. Thus the knot, karma grandhana, this binding knot in our heart. Early on in this chapter, Sutta Goswami had mentioned yada nijasana ta karma grandhana bandhanam chindanti kovidas tasya ko nakur kataratim. That intelligent persons, they cut this knot by remembering the personality of Godhead. That's the methodology. It's not that we, fighting with the material energy, but by remembering Krishna, the knot can be cut. If we're indulging in thinking of ourselves and trying to manage it ourselves and this and that, maybe some benefit is there if it's in relationship with the pure devotees, in relationship with Krishna, but it's not in of itself enough one also has to, Krishna explains in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita in many places, in all your activities be conscious of me, acting always under my direction, depending on my mercy, and so on. Krishna conscious means being conscious of Krishna. Tasmat ekenam, no. Tasmat sarveshu bhuti, no. Yeah, tasmat sarveshu bhutishu manoshu vishita. Mayapita manobhatiya mame vaishishya shangshaya. In all your activities, just be conscious of me. With your mind intelligent and fixed on me, you will attain me without a doubt. Becoming conscious of Krishna. Tasmade kena manasa bhagavan sattatam pati shotavya katitavya sadhya pujas nitidata. Therefore, with one pointed attention, one should constantly hear about, remember, and worship the personality of Godhead. It should be our goal, the goal of life. It doesn't happen immediately. We don't reach the goal immediately, but there's a process to reach the goal. And if we're willing to follow that process, or lucky we're in a system where that process is, the goal is being aimed at, and we can make progress in the path. We don't reach the goal. This is the goal, this is the result. Is that one's heart becomes free, one becomes freed of this bondage, this karma gundana, this knot of material attachment. It's pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruit of action is terminated when one sees the self as master, supreme self. It can also mean the soul. Here that small s is mentioned. Sometimes we see big S in the trance, sometimes small s. Either way, because people are under the control of the senses and the mind and the body and other objects around them. Whereas the soul should be in control, should be controlling the intelligence and controlling the mind. But it's not. So where the soul is basically a victim, a slave of its own conditioning. And when we see the soul beyond it, and ultimately the supreme soul as the master. And the last verse which we'll read. Certainly, therefore, since time immemorial, all transcendentalists have been rendering devotional service to Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, with great delight. Such devotional service is enlivening to the self. It's a higher taste. It gives us that pleasure which we're searching after. And without that, vishaya vinivartante niraha rasya dena rasavajang vasopyasya param drishva navartate, without the higher taste, param drishva navartate, how can we give up the lower taste? It's not possible. You can't just stop it. The living entity. And how that's evoked is explained by Lord Kapila Dev, that the every living entity knows that the greatest entanglement of the living entity is our attachment to the sense objects, whatever they are. That's the greatest entanglement. When that same attachment is transferred to the self-realized soul, that attachment becomes the cause of our liberation from bondage in this material world. That's the secret. To associate with pure devotees means not just to sit around, but to actually serve and try to satisfy, to assist them, follow their instruction, etc., etc. So Prabhupada has given us a wealth, an ocean of directions to follow. We just have to try to apply them in our lives. Follow the process, whatever it means. So I'll just finish the purport to today's verse. In Western civilization, these three things are very prominent because of an unnecessary increase of wealth, we mentioned. It's artificial. Right? We were hearing yesterday, Prabhupada was talking about Arjuna and how King Yudhishthira at the Battle of Kurukshetra, more or less all of the wealth had been exhausted by facilitating the great battle of Kurukshetra. So they wanted to perform great sacrifice, Rajasuya sacrifice, but no wealth left. So he sent his brothers out and in different directions to try to gain wealth. Arjuna, he came across some great king, Nahush or something, who in previous ages had left a very great wealth of, Prabhupada called it a gold mine, but a wealth of gold. Because in days of yore, they used to have real wealth, gold. To such an extent, Prabhupada said, nowadays we are so rich that we can eat off of plastic plates with plastic spoons, and we can throw them away. Some people even wash them afterwards and use them again and again and again. But in the Vedic culture, the rich people, Prabhupada said, the kings and the rich aristocracy, would throw even gold plates away after eating. Can you imagine? You've just eaten off of a gold plate and you throw it over the wall. Next door neighbor will be very pleased. If you want to make friends with your next door neighbours, this would be one way you could do it. You could throw golden plates into their garden. They'll be very, although they may have an attack or a raid by some thieves or something. But in principle, if you give people gold, they're very happy. Just like if you feed a dog food, the dog becomes happy. People just want money. And you give people money, they become happy. They'll do any damn thing practically if you give them money. They're just like dogs in that sense. But they had so much wealth, they just throw it away, gold everywhere. They didn't need it. What's the use of it? And you use it, yes, plenty of it. Rich people, aristocracy in past days, now not the same. But like that. So nowadays people have this artificial wealth. Very few people. If you have gold, you're in danger. The Brahmins, it said, after the king gave vast quantities of gold to the Brahmins were thinking, what do we need all this for? They just left it behind and went away. They didn't need it. No value. And so Arjuna picked up all that wealth to use in service of Krishna. Where did the book go? Last line. Narada Muni considered all this in the case of Manigriva and Nalakuvara because he found in them so much pride in the wealth of their father Kuvara. One of the curses of being born in a rich family, you get proud, you're lazy sometimes, you've got so much wealth you don't care. Don't work, just spend your father's money and enjoy temporarily, but not for long. It will be exhausted soon. And so will we. Everything's exhausted. So the recommendation here is pride is here it's clearly seen. It's due to pride, it's also a result of being wealthy too. One becomes proud. It's a result of having a beautiful body, one becomes proud. Wealth, education, strength, fame, in and of themselves, the aspiration for them is a result of pride, and they lead to more and more pride. Further and further entanglement in this material world. So that knot has to be cut by the mercy of the great devotees, who sometimes point these things out. And when the people are ready, then they may suddenly wake up. And so many examples of that, of very rich people being woken up, like we had mentioned yesterday, Danadas, disciple of Ramanujacharya, was vastly wealthy, beautiful body, and famous wrestler and so on. He was woken up by the mercy of Ramanujacharya. He came to his senses. And Tulsi Das, by the mercy of Chintamani, the prostitute, also realized that he was mad for this intoxication of sex life. This happened many times here. The Nalakuvara and Manigriva would come to their senses, realize how foolish they were, causing their own suffering. And it's a mode of ignorance. We don't know. So important is knowledge, mode of goodness knowledge, transcendental knowledge, to help people to get freed of the ignorance of the material world, the passionate endeavors which they're addicted to, etc. By regulating it, by directing it towards Krishna, and so on like that, so that gradually they become freed. As Manigriva and Nalakuvara became freed by the mercy of Krishna, anyone can become freed if we take shelter of Krishna. Manigriva and Nalakuvara got the mercy of Narada Muni as well as the curse, because they also woke up when they got the curse. They realized they made a big mistake, and they asked for the mercy of Narada, so he gave them this blessing that they would be born as trees in the courtyard of Nanda Maharaj. And when Krishna appeared there after a long, long time, in that courtyard, they would be delivered by Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? One type.
Spoke about the anger of pure devotee. I have two questions. how we prove if we see some seemingly pure devotee becoming angry that he fallen because of something or he remained pure but using that energy? That's one question. Another question, what we do about the anger of the not pure-hearted but pure devotee who have pure desire and they become angry?
Anger. Well, we did mention just now, Srila Prabhupada, that particularly in public, he would sometimes get angry when somebody was particularly impersonal. Mayavadis, for instance, would sometimes start to speak. How he dealt with it would vary, perhaps according to circumstances. In the West, he would sometimes let them speak. We saw more in the East, Prabhupada would immediately get on their case. In various situations, Prabhupada would respond differently. The anger is there in the sense that, Prabhupada wanted to crush this, offense towards Krishna. As soon as that was over, he was completely self-composed and normal. As we mentioned earlier, as if nothing, he might start laughing and telling a joke, or even whatever, something, or just speaking very sweetly to somebody else, in the same room sometimes. It wasn't like it was something which pervaded his consciousness. It was just something he used for a short moment, but wasn't used by it in any way. He wasn't disturbed by it in any way, personally speaking. Whereas generally speaking, somebody who's not on that level of transcendence becomes somewhat shaken. Now, the effects are also to be seen, not just the symptoms of the person who appears to be angry, whether they're a pure devotee or not a pure devotee, is the effects. What are the effects? The effects are on the persons who are receiving the anger, those who are around at the same time, and the person who's becoming angry. The person who's appears to be angry, of course, we just briefly mentioned that. The effect will vary according to our consciousness, and sometimes we're kind of like, we're still angry for minutes afterwards, days afterwards sometimes. It's not like, you can't shake it off or anything. But the effects on the other person are, it should have some effect. The only purpose a pure devotee uses anger is to try to try to wake the other person up, to try to bring them to their senses. It's not like they're angry at the person, they're angry at their philosophy, or they're angry at their behavior or something, because it is causing them suffering. So the anger of a pure devotee is out of love, is out of compassion, just like sometimes a parent, Prabhupada says, gets angry with a child. Now, it may be out of control sometimes, but in the proper principle is because they want the child to behave properly for the benefit of the child and not do things which will harm him. The child is doing things which are causing his own harm. So the parents may be trying to correct the child, appear to be angry, but it's only out of love. The pure devotee's anger is out of pure love. Sometimes we get angry if someone gets in the way of what I want, what I'm doing, the way I think that things should be done, etc. One is a mixed devotee, naturally has a mixed idea of how things should be done, so there's going to be a mixed result. And it is not necessarily the same thing. If we can't control anger, how can we use it? It's a little sensitive. A pure devotee doesn't get controlled by anger. He knows how to use it, and consequently it doesn't have any ill effects. Sometimes when we get angry, it increases the problem. Because it's mixed with their own, interference with the way I'd like things to be. We may not be thinking of how Krishna sees it. Pure devotees, Prabhupada would sometimes not get angry with someone at all, yet somebody who's seen to be doing very nicely, Prabhupada would get angry with. Because they're differently situated. Very differently situated. Pure devotee can see that, whereas a mixed devotee cannot. So sometimes we try to imitate the pure devotee, and it doesn't have the same effect. Prabhupada used that example. One devotee Prabhupada was talking quite critically, if you want to call it that, or strongly, let's say, about Gandhi and his what he was doing and so on and so forth. And when one of his senior disciples did the same thing in public, Prabhupada got angry with his disciple. You're not in a position to do that. So it depends on the situation. You have to be very careful using anger. Using anger in our case, Prabhupada generally said, it means we preach. We go out and we try to preach. We try to give instructions. But to get angry at people who don't follow it, that's another thing. And if they're our disciples, that's one thing. If they're not, then we're not in a position to get angry with them. You have to be very careful. Otherwise it can backfire. Become angry. And one time Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was with some disciples and they're asking him, should we become angry with those who are inimical towards devotional service? And Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, yes, but first we should see who is inimical. And when I look at myself, I see no one more inimical than myself. So first I should be angry at myself, if I'm going to use anger. So fault find in our own heart before we even think about fault finding in others. Check ourselves, see where we're at. But as far as external, ways of defining or clearly seeing, that again, we saw even in Amsterdam, one young hippie thought Prabhupada was getting angry. Why is the man getting angry? He said, Swami, why are you getting so angry? You should just chant Hare Krishna. He couldn't see that Prabhupada was using anger because he was so much in the mode of passion and ignorance. So the more we're in the mode of passion and ignorance, then we can't see, you can't recognize these things very easily. At least not immediately. Maybe later on one realizes. In the beginning one get really upset when even an advanced devotee, many devotees got upset when Prabhupada was seemingly angry. But actually it was out of love and compassion. You can't always judge it on the surface. But for one who's a little bit mature, a little bit advanced, you can see that the motive behind it is simply concern. Concern for that devotee or concern for that person. It's not because that person's getting in the way of my plan, my this, my that. Just concern that they're causing their own suffering. Not causing suffering to me, but they're causing suffering to themselves. A little thing, I don't know. Any value from that or not. Anything else?
Yeah. One more thing that we are using the drama playing and acting, different pastimes. So,
Dramas?
Yeah, drama performance.
Mm-hmm.
So devotees have to live in that mood. So that will affect them when they play some angry role, angry. You know, like Hiranyakashipu.
Oh, it's a good way to get out anger, that's for sure. Very good way.
So do you have any experience that you played some part of this role and you should become angry and then it's affected you later after finish the
In a drama?
Yeah.
Very purifying effect. Because you're supposed to be angry. It's the right thing to be angry. It's correct to be angry in the drama, if that's your role. If it's not your role, it's not correct. You know, if you were playing Prahlad Maharaj in the drama, and Hiranyakashipu starts, saying something, you have to play your role. Of course, Prahlad was indirectly angry too, but not in the same way. And Prahlad Maharaj, maybe he had a gun or something. Yeah, why are you talking to me like that? Bang! That would be wrong. And he had to play his role. So in a drama, the playing the role of a demon in a drama can be extremely purifying. Because you're meant to be. You're meant to be. That's why Hiranyakashipu was a devotee, but for the sake of the pastime, he completely covered over. No mentality of, I'm a devotee, I'm playing a part. No. Completely absorbed in being a demon. 100%. Ultimately, Krishna's arrangement for the pleasure of Krishna in one sense. But he was so covered, completely, 100% covered, as much as anyone could be, by Krishna's arrangement, playing that part. Of course, he ultimately got the benefit of it. But that was what he's supposed to have done. He had to play his part. So sometimes, in practical terms, other than drama, which is, you're trained to play that part, you're supposed to play it, but in our daily life sometimes too. I've always, the right intention is there, as you mentioned. The intention is there. We make a mistake. We went overboard. Maybe we're under pressure. Maybe we hadn't had very good sadhana. Maybe there's too many things going on. And there's a point where we're not pure devotees. We may burst. Even Prabhupada will sometimes get, this is too much, Just back off more or less. And sometimes in that situation we burst. But it's not with a direct intention against a particular person or a situation. It's just we're not on that level of self-control, that level of transcendental purity. So sometimes, but the intention wasn't bad. So we learn from that. And the result of that becoming unnecessarily angry or over-angry or angry at the wrong person or whatever it is that we feel very repentant. We feel very regretful. When we hear situations like this, it can create, at least subtly within us now, a feeling of repentance, a feeling of, I'm such a rascal, or whatever it may be. It creates a feeling of repentance in our heart, which cleanses the heart, which purifies the heart. If a devotee is given a responsibility and they're sincerely trying their best, but due to our condition, due to our lack of advancement, we sometimes lose it under sometimes it's extreme pressure sometimes for conditioned souls like us. And sometimes you burst, you can't take it, or you go into depression. But it's not with the wrong intention, it's just we're weak. And Krishna understands that. And then the feelings which are required, the repentance, or the feeling sorry, feeling, or even asking for forgiveness, or going to a senior, asking what to do, all these various things are important steps. It means that, we actually got the right intention. If we don't care less and we just carry on bang, 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 then that means we're not really sincere. We're following our conditional nature or whatever it is more than anything else. But a mixed devotee will repent. This we see even advanced devotees playing the role of mixed devotees sometimes, like Parikshit Maharaj threw in the dead snake on the shoulder of Kaushik Rishi and so on. Repented. And this is the way it's cleansing. So, not that we try to justify our anger. Well, they deserved it anyway. The blimmin' rascal been getting sorted. No, that type of thing is a sign that we're actually still controlled by passion and ignorance, not by goodness. Nice topic. Nice topic. Nice topic.
In terms of identifying with one's role, I heard that Christopher Lee used to play Dracula.
Who played who?
Christopher Lee.
I never heard of
He
it.
used to play Dracula. He was sleeping in a coffin.
You used to play Dracula? For Krishna in Paris, and when you're in a drama. It's quite amazing. You don't have to start dealing with devotees like you come up to a devotee and start screaming at them and threaten to kill them because they said they were chanting Hare Krishna. What if it took from what's going on? I'm just trying to get into the role of Hiranyakashipu, Prabhu. Take this, bang. Pick the devotee up and hurl him on the floor or something. I'm just practicing to be Hiranyakashipu.
Shows that so much mess and desires that Krishna is
intensive love. There's a little drop that we see in the spiritual realm, the 5 direct rasas. Mother Yasoda's in paternal affection. But flavoring that rasa sometimes, the spice, a little spice sometimes is there. So anger is one of the indirect rasas, a little spice sometimes. But it doesn't cloud the Staibhava. The main emotional affection for Krishna is the one controls even the spicing, and it makes it even more flavorable. She's using it out of love for Krishna, because we all hear these things, we don't realize it, but we hear how the personality of God, she sees him as her little son who needs to be taught a lesson. My God, what's he going to be like when he grows up? if he's like this now, he's got to learn his lessons. He's not listening. So any mother is like that with her child. It's out of an intense love for Krishna. It's not anger as we know it at all. It's just another aspect of her love for Krishna, which appears from a mundane perspective to have a tinge of a lot of anger, maybe, or at least a tinge of anger. But it's not. It's that intensive love for her helpless, uncontrolled child. She wants to. And Krishna also allows this to happen, to allow this whole pastime to unwind. A wonderful pastime for the welfare of every living entity to unwind. If Yashoda had not appeared to become angry with Krishna, the whole pastime would not have taken place. Mother Yashoda came back. Oh, thank you, Krishna. It's very wonderful what you've done. You're the personality of God. It all belongs to you anyway. It's nice. It wouldn't be such an exciting pastime. But this way it breaks all the anarthas. This pastime also breaks various anarthas within ourselves if we hear it submissively. Even the tendency to get angry if things don't go the way we want, the tendency to think I'm the enjoyer, and so on and so forth. Many different aspects of our consciousness can be purified by submissively hearing this particular pastime.
Don't you think, Maharaj, this Krishna, if everyone loves him and loves him more and more and serves him and praises him, he will become spoiled.
Totally spoiled, yeah.
Huh?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, therefore all these things, different aspects are there to create an ever growing degree of loving exchange. Yeah? There's no question of Krishna being spoiled in reality, but the thought might be there in loving exchanges. If I give him this, then my son will be spoiled. Krishna, everyone else is, in a sense, in the material world, at least everyone's spoiled. But in another sense of the word spoiled. But yeah, there's no harm in spoiling Krishna, but the mother doesn't think like that. She thinks, make sure my child's not spoiled. Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Yes.
She had a little of that mentality. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada. Thank you, nice to see you again. Might be a little busy today, catching up on the effects of traveling.
Already busy?
Huh?
Already busy? You are already busy?
I've been busy all day since yesterday, as soon as we arrived non-stop, all morning, and now we're going to carry on being busy for a while, and then we'll take some rest. Hare Krishna. We took some rest last night, actually, not enough. Prabhupada ki jai.
You can see how the body adjusts according to where it is, because you come from a hot place and you seem like being freezing, but we don't freeze at all. Because we are here, you know.
I was warm yesterday, but just this morning, it's my fault, because I was doing some calculations this morning.
Body adjusts to
and
I
had the fire off, and I didn't realize it because I completely forgot where I was even. I didn't even know where I was when I finished. And then I suddenly felt really cold, so absorbed in what I was doing. And talking about that this morning, if possible, maybe after a while, of course, breakfast and this and that, but I'd like to have a stock check made. I'll go and have a look in the stock check of all the Tamil books. He'll be asking me about the details, if he's got them and this. Then I've got to calculate. I've done all the price calculations, and we've got to hand them, do all that stuff whilst I'm here. And externals, but it's got to be done. I'd like to see the boxes first and check them off. Because he was said 8 boxes, and he charged us for 8 boxes, but he only sent 5, is that right? And now he's saying, oh, all 8 were in 5, so it's like, it's really confusing. So he charged us for 8 boxes, and we'll have to go and see what we've got.
No, 5 is it?
Yeah, well, if all the books are there, we have to see if they're all there or not.
Can you show more? No?
Yeah, I'll have a quick look now, then I don't need to look again. I'll just have a quick look at the boxes and I'll leave it up maybe. I don't know if Rasik Prabhu has enough energy and time today, that's up to him, but somehow or another try to do a stock check today. Okay, let's go and have a quick look at them.